So even only counting the past 17 years, Spider-Man has had a plethora of video games spanning multiple generations, and it even still has original games coming out to this day, like the new one for the PS4. But not every single game was a hit. We've had a lot of misses. We've had a lot of really bad Spider-Man games. But what's just as bad as a bad game is a bad port of a good game. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at today, is 5 extremely bad Spider-Man video game ports. I mean, with such a big history as Spider-Man, he's had to have some really bad ports, and I've played a few of them. Now keep in mind, this is not my top 5 worst Spider-Man games list. This is my top 5 bad ports of Spider-Man games. So the game isn't bad per se, it's just the port, which may equal to a bad or mediocre game. Let's just get on with the list already. And our number 5 is Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation Portable. And this is where it begins with, it's not a particularly bad game. It's just really lazy. It feels like 75 to 80% of this game was stolen from Spider-Man 1. I'm talking NPCs, areas, sounds, almost anything that you can think of is from Spider-Man 1. Now sure, there's Spider-Man 2 stuff in it, like a boss battle with Rhino, Mysterio, Doc Ock, and of course the storyline from Spider-Man 2, kind of, sort of. It's very different from the other versions of this game. It still feels like Spider-Man 1 blood is running through majority of its veins. But it's at the bottom because, yet again, it's not particularly bad. It just feels like little to no work was put into it. Now let's move on to number 4. And number 4 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the Nintendo 3DS. Now sure, take a 3D open world mediocre action game and turn it into a mediocre 3D side scroller. And the reason that this game is on the list is because, well, one, this whole turning from Spider-Man 3D action games into 2D side-scrollers really needs to quit. And 2, they took The Amazing Spider-Man, which is a 3D open-world action game, and turned it into a lower, decent version of that open-world action game, just without the open-world part. So it's been done before, they just really didn't feel like doing it again. And you want to know the worst part about this game? The mobile version. You know, like the version on tablets and phones that aren't really gamer specific, has a better version of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 than the gamer specific 3DS. That's depressing. Let's move on to number 3. And coming in at number 3 is Spider-Man Web of Shadows Amazing Allies Edition for the PlayStation 2. This is not only being added because of the whole 3D game into 2D side-scroller thing again, it is also being added because Web of Shadows is cemented as one of the best Spider-Man games, one of the best stories, with some of the best choices. However, all of this is just removed for the Amazing Allies Edition. Well, not all of it's removed, but all of its seriousness and all of its grittiness, that I don't even think grittiness is a word. Anyways, all the stuff you see in the trailers and actual gameplay for Web of Shadows does not have the same feeling as it does in the Amazing Allies Edition for obvious reasons. And what hurts the most is that the PS2 would have been able to handle a downscaled version of the other version, the better version, the actual Web of Shadows version's graphics. But instead, they gave us the PSP/3DS or NDS, whatever. They gave us the crappier version of the game on superior hardware. I hate Activision, and I'm so glad that they lost the license. Let's move on to number 2. And rolling into the number 2 spot over a year after its initial release is The Amazing Spider-Man on the PlayStation Vita. Now, the immediate difference between this and the other entries on this list is that this is a genuinely bad port. Horrible frame rate, horrible graphics. There's no reason to buy it on mobile because there's nothing additional if you already have it on other console. It doesn't come with all of the added DLC, even though it came out a year after the initial release. The Wii U version had everything on it, but the PS Vita version, no. Now my question is, why not bring on the 3DS/Wii version onto the PS Vita if it really could not handle this version of the game. That was already a handheld version of The Amazing Spider-Man. All you had to do was upscale it.
What are you, fucking stupid?
I mean, I do give you props for trying to release the full console version on handheld, but don't release a game at this current state. It feels like we're playing a beta version of The Amazing Spider-Man and not the finished version. And here we are, boys and girls. We're going on to our final worst Spider-Man port ever. This has got to be one of the worst ports I've ever seen in my entire life. There are only a few other ones I've ever seen that are worse, but this is the granddaddy of bad Spider-Man ports, and if you are a longtime fan of Spider-Man games, then you know exactly what this game is going to be. Number 1 is Spider-Man 2 for the PC. I mean, come on, it was so obvious for my top pick. It's glitchy, it's ugly. It doesn't need to be made. You could have just ported the console version to the PC and nobody would have complained. Everybody would have been actually happy. The NPCs look like they're gonna eat my soul every single time I look into their eyes. There is a literal quote-unquote boss battle that is literally just Simon Says. Simon Says with Doc Ock. Feels like I'm playing an indie parody game of a Spider-Man game instead of an actual Spider-Man game. The fact that this went through people, actual people, and said, oh yeah, we could totally sell this, that's okay, baffles me. I find it quite ironic that one of the best superhero games of all time has one of the worst ports of all time. So that was my video on the top 5 worst Spider-Man ports ever. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've never really done a top 5 video, and this was kind of a pain in my butt. It's taken me like 3 hours to do this because I did every single installment on their own. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun making this one. If you guys want to see a top 5 video, put it in the comment section. But that's all I got. In the next video will most likely be me continuing the Killing Joke, and I want to get that done over the spring break. Not done. I want to get that done over spring break. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.
He shoots web from his wrist, but now Spider-Man's fucking pissed.